Owen Turtentwald on your left, Jody Keith on your right. Both these players 5-3, just squeaked into day number 2 of competition, but this is a great opportunity for both of them to potentially run to the table and make the top 8. So you never know what can happen, as Jody will start things off with a Bloodstained Mire.
Yeah, I have one claim to fame in the scenarios like this, where I won 9 matches in a row to top 8 an invitational with Jeskai Ascendancy.
Oh, really? Okay.
And I believe you were doing commentary, and at one point you walked over and asked me if I was still alive.
That sounds like
with
something I
about
would
6
do.
rounds to go. And I said, technically, yes. But I have to win them all.
Well, you found a way to win them all. It can be done.
I cast a turn 1 Graph Digger's Cage against Jeff Hoogland playing Reanimator.
Oh, I do remember
in the last
this.
round of Swiss on camera. He brainstormed in response and then conceded.
Have you ever?
He did not bring in show and tell.
Have you ever cast 2 of these on turn 1?
No.
No?
I have not.
It's probably a pretty good feeling.
I'm sure it's great. He also has Bloodghast in the yard.
Yeah.
This is the ideal start for Owen Turtentwald's Black-Red Hollow 1 deck. Jody Keith's removal, not really that well suited to deal with these Hollow 1s. We could see this game be over in as quickly as 2 turns.
Yeah, this is one of those classic Lightning Bolt matchups that are unfavorable for the Lightning Bolt player. We saw it with Jim in round number 1 when he was playing Jeskai Control. His Bolt and his Helixes were pretty poor. For Keith, he's got cards like Lightning Bolt and Fatal Push, which are pretty poor here. Clean answers to Hollow 1s. He's got a Dreadbore. He's got 3 copies of Kolaghan's Command, but he's already under the gun.
Yeah, even if he's able to use Kolaghan's Command to kill one next turn, he's already going to be at 11 life. There's no way he's chump blocking with this young Pyromancer. He's still going to be facing down a 4-4. If Owen has a land, there's another 2-1 Bloodghast in play that's threatening to come back over and over. And that's without him doing anything except playing a land.
Yeah, he's in some real trouble with Jody Keith. Turtentwald looks like he's going to start his turn with a Faithless Looting. So he'll draw 2 and discard 2 yet again. One of the most powerful cards in the deck here in Faithless Looting. Arguably the most powerful. Really does enable everything this deck is looking to do.
Personally, I think Flameblade Adept is the most powerful card in the deck.
Yeah, some of its draws are good.
No, it's not part of your nut draws, but it is one of the best early plays you can have. It rewards you for spinning your wheels. Like cards like Goblin Lore, Burning Inquiry, Faithless Looting. You know, if you draw too many of them, sometimes your deck doesn't actually do anything if you don't draw the hollow ones.
That's true.
And you get rewarded for all that stuff just by playing a 1-mana 1/2 with Evasion.
Turtentwald, he finishes his Faithless Looting, discards a Flameblade Adept and a Goblin Lore, comes in for 8 with his hollow ones. Then he'll, of course, play a Bloodstained Mire, get that Bloodghast back, sacrifice the Mire for a Blood Crypt, fall down to 15 in the process as the Shockland enters the battlefield untapped. And he might have an additional copy of Flameblade Adept. He'll actually just go with the real big fish. This is a heck of a start.
Turn 2.
Yeah.
Turn 2, Owen Turtentwald has 15 power on the battlefield on turn 2 with his opponent at 11.
Jody Keith.
Bananas.
Yeah. Jody Keith is going to sack a fetch. He's going to try to keep up here. And this is one of those spots, you know, where you would see a player play something like Lingering Souls.
Yes.
Just to kind of start putting out some chump blockers, or in some instances, get a little aggression going. But for Jody, this is chump block city here.
Yeah, I mean, 3 mana make 3 blockers, basically. The Young Pyromancer generating the elemental token. You know, Owen's not out of the woods yet. Jody can flash this back next turn for 2 mana, doing the exact same thing. While Jody is far behind, cards like Young Pyromancer and Lingering Souls do buy you a lot of time.
Yeah. And he's going to need a lot of them now. As you mentioned, Lingering Souls, of course, has flashbacks, so we'll get to see this interaction again next turn, most likely, as Owen's going to turn everything sideways. That part's pretty easy for the 2-time Player of the Year.
Now, there is the possibility that Jody wants to only chump block 2 of these large creatures so that next turn he has the option to gang block on something like the Hollow One or the Gurmag Angler. I think his life total is too low, and he's just going to go with a triple chump, though.
The follow-up is a Flameblade Adept. Let's go with another one of those. And Menace actually very, very important here. In a situation where Jody Keith is looking to just do a lot of chump blocking, Menace is going to play a huge role in things. You'll see Lingering Souls be flashed back from the graveyard. Same battlefield as he had last turn, though he does have additional mana up if he has a Fatal Push or a Lightning Bolt.
So with only 1 card in hand here, cards like Burning Inquiry are usually not very good. Mm-hmm. This is where the power of Flameblade Adept actually comes into play. This Burning Inquiry, you know, he's gonna have 1 random card left over at the end of it, but every time he's able to discard a card, he's able to generate an extra power off of the Flameblade Adept.
Both these players are going to draw 3 cards and discard 3 cards. You saw Jody Keith put another elemental token onto the battlefield from the Fatal Push that took care of one of those powerful Flameblade Adepts. So they will roll a couple of dice here, just one to take care of Owen, since he's only going to get to keep 1 card. Jody has, it looks like 6 of them, so he's going to lose 3 of them. So we'll do a little randomization here early this morning. He'll have to re-roll one. There we go. A 1, 4, and a 6. Make the cards go away. All right, so Jody's going to lose a couple of cards there, among them a Faithless Looting. Owen's going to lose a Flamewake Phoenix among those cards.
Yes, lose a Flamewake Phoenix. It's coming right back.
Yeah, it's coming back, and everything's coming into the red zone. Don't forget, Flameblade Adept now a 4-power creature.
Yeah, with Menace too, so it's going to be really tough to block. And since Jody has to worry about all these other giant creatures, that's 4 coming to the face almost 100%. He might even be in a situation here where he has to jump block with Young Pyromancer.
Which is not a spot he wants to be in.
Oh, no. The game is over at that point. It's already pretty bad. Jody doesn't have access to something like Damnation in the main deck, so this is just a really tough spot for him.
And Jody going to try to line up some blocks here that are somewhat profitable. Looks like a double block there on the on the Flameblade Adept, not the Flamewake Phoenix. And it looks like he might, well, if he does this, looks like he lets 8 through, so he's got to let Young Pyromancer jump in front of something, even though it's clear he doesn't want to. And I'm with you. If this is how the blocks are going to line up, Owen's just going to attrition him out of the game.
Oh, for sure. Like, he lost his entire side of the battlefield to trade with the Flameblade Adept and took 4 damage still.
He'll draw a card. It's another copy of Fatal Push. He's even got a Bedlam Reveler in hand. Cards that are really, really good in this deck, but certainly not good enough in this situation. As Owen Turtentwald going to win game number 1 here over Jody Keith. Black-Red Hollow One. Up a game here pretty quickly over Maru Pyromancer. That is the power of Hollow One, folks. 2 Hollow Ones on turn number 1. We'll see if Owen can top that or if Jody can come back. But first, a few messages from our sponsors. We are back here in the booth. Cedric Phillips, Todd Anderson, getting ready to watch game number 2 between Owen Turtentwald and Jody Keith. Play a little Black-Red Hollow One versus Mardu Pyromancer. Keith got ran over by Turtentwald in game number 1. Hollow Ones and Gurmag Anglers much too quick for Jody to take care of. But you take a look at the sideboard. He's got some answers here in 3 Ensnaring Bridge, 3 Surgical Extraction, 3 Camball, Council of Allocation, 2 Wear Tear, 2 Dampening Sphere, Liliana the Last Hope, and a Zealous Persecution. What do you like here, Todd?
So I think Surgical Extraction might be a trap, but it is one of the few ways that Jody's deck has to answer permanently cards like Flamewake Phoenix and Bloodghast. But he still has to deal with these giant monsters in Hollow One and Gurmag Angler and Tastiger. So it's kind of a losing proposition to try to use Surgical Extraction to extend the game. Ensnaring Bridge, however, is going to be one of his best tools, and it may just flat out steal the game from Owen. If Owen doesn't bring in Ancient Grudge, I don't believe he has a way to win other than direct damage via Grim Lavamancer and Lightning Bolt.
That'll be interesting. I think that Bridge will be pretty useful in this matchup here for Jody. Don't know if Owen's going to see it coming or not, though Ensnaring Bridge is starting to become a central piece to the sideboards here are Mardu Pyromancer. 4 Turtentwald, 4 Leyline of the Void, 3 Ancient Grudge, 3 Fatal Push, 2 Collective Brutality, 2 Thoughtseize, and that additional copy of Grim Lavamancer. Anything jump out to you here?
So Leyline of the Void, I think, is an obvious slam dunk. It basically turns off Bedlam Reveler and Lingering Souls flashback, as well as Faithless Looting flashback. A lot of the synergies that the Mardu Pyromancer deck is able to garner just become invalidated on turn 0. And the colors that Jody's playing, I don't think he's I take it back. Wear Tear is probably going to come in on Jody's side as well, just because it's a 2-mana answer to Hollow One.
Okay.
And that actually might end up having some splash damage on Leyline of the Void. So he might have an answer to it. But Leyline of the Void's still a really solid way to negate virtually half of Mardu Pyromancer's threats.
All right. Well, those are the options there for both players. They're waiting for the green light from us. We're about to give it to them. Game number 2 about to be underway. Owen going to start things off with a Leyline of the Void. Going to make Jody's life pretty difficult as here comes an Inquisition of Kozilek. Owen will fan it out. Couple copies of Street Wraith. Looks like a Faithless Looting and a couple of lands here for Turtentwald.
Yeah, this Leyline of the Void is a pretty big deal to start here. Every instant or sorcery that gets exiled via the Leyline of the Void makes it that much harder to cast Bedlam Reveler later, even if Jody's able to find the Wear Tear.
Yeah.
And as most of us who play Modern know and have played with and against Mardu Pyromancer, Bedlam Reveler is one of the best cards, if not the best card, in the Mardu Pyromancer deck.
Yeah, Bedlam Reveler is definitely an engine that's going to keep the deck doing its thing, as Turtentwald's going to cycle 2 copies of Street Wraith here early on in the game. Not be able to cast that, it's an unreasonable ask at 8 mana.
Yeah,
not a very good card if you're paying the full 8 mana for it. So we'll see if Jody, 1, brought in Wear Tear, and 2, if he does, how he'll opt to use it if he actually does draw it. As we go back over to Turtentwald, Jody Keith just playing a Bloodstained Mire and passing the turn back. Turtentwald going to sacrifice his Bloodstained Mire, get himself a Blood Crypt, fall down to 15 in the process. And we'll see what the third place finisher at Pro Tour Dominaria has for his second turn of the game.
Believe it's going to be a fatty bombaddy, like a Tassiger.
Well, how about a Surgical Extraction saying, you wrong.
Okay. If he has a fetch land, he can still do it. Surgical is knocking out the Faithless Looting as opposed to the Street Wraith, which is a fairly obvious choice.
Yeah, I think Faithless Looting. And how this game is probably going to play out, I think Jody needs to stop Owen from drawing additional cards.
For sure.
I do think you probably have to bring that card in from Jody's side in this matchup. I'm not sure exactly which card you put a priority on, but you're not unhappy to take Faithless Looting, I will say that.
Yeah, I mean, you can get some extra information, too, with things like Inquisition of Kozilek, so you might be able to snag an extra card out of their hand.
Sure.
But for the most part, you're just going to want to hit the graveyard-enabling type things. Like, you're going to want to hit the Bloodghast, the Flamewake Phoenixes, and the Faithless Lootings.
So Jody will get some info by taking a look at Owen's deck. He's obviously got access to his hand as well, as Turtentwald did do a lot of cycling of Street Wraiths early on in the game. You'll see he's got another copy of Leyline of Void in hand. And Owen's hand doesn't look too explosive at this stage. I think the second turn might just be casting a Bloodghast. It certainly won't be casting Faithless Looting anymore this game.
Yeah, neither player's draw looks too particularly good. Jody Keith's Bedlam Reveler in hand, neutered by that Leyline of the Void. And his plan of Ensnaring Bridge is going to make Owen's draw look even worse than it already is.
There is the Bloodghast. Jody Keith is going to sacrifice another Bloodstained Mire here.
We actually do see that a lot in Modern, where after sideboard, both decks just become very answer-heavy to the very specific linear types of decks that they're playing against. Like, both of these decks have somewhat of a reliance on the graveyard. Both players have already played some sort of graveyard exiling thing. This is fairly commonplace. Games really slow down a lot. You have a lot more time to try to battle through all these cards, but in Modern, the cards are so powerful that a lot of times it's just not feasible.
Marsh Flats will be sacrificed here by Jody Keith. He'll get himself a basic swamp, falls down to 18. And we'll see what spell he'd like to play on this turn. I do like that sometimes in Modern matches, things just kind of get a little disjointed and grimy. And you're going to kind of just play an ugly game instead of both decks being like these supercharged, turn 3 killing machines, as here is an Ensnaring Bridge.
Like, Jody's draw in game 1 was very good. He went, turn 2 Young Pyromancer, turn 3 Lingering Souls, turn 4 Flashback Removal spell. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't even 1/10 good enough.
Yeah, just got destroyed.
But now in game 2, you're seeing, exactly what happens when players start having more answers. Maybe they keep hands based on certain sideboard cards like this Leyline of Void, knowing that it's going to negatively affect your opponent enough so that, you don't actually need that really explosive start.
And Jody going to follow up that Ensnaring Bridge with a copy of Young Pyromancer and a Bloodstained Mire. We're going to go back over to Turtentwald, who's going to sacrifice a Bloodstained Mire. We're in a Bloodstained Mire heavy matchup here, folks, as Turtentwald's going to go get a Stomping Ground. That Stomping Ground, of course, will enable him to flashback Ancient Grudge. And that assumes, of course, that he even brought the card in.
Even if he didn't, I like fetching up the Stomping Ground just as a bluff, Like, I think Owen is a heads-up enough player that, he's done the research. He probably has Ancient Grudge in his deck right now. But if he doesn't, fetching up the Stomping Ground just, makes your opponent think that at some point this Ensnaring Bridge might disappear, and they have to be scared of it.
Bloodghast going to trade here with Young Pyromancer. And now, I like this play here by Jody. He is doing this, for those of you who've never seen this, he's doing this at the end of combat before Owen gets priority back in his second main phase to remove the Bloodghast from the game forever via Surgical Extraction. So now, Todd, 2 primary threats down the Surgical Extraction want to take care of. There's only one left. in Flame Lake Phoenix.
For sure. I mean, Jody does have 3 of the surgical extraction in the sideboard, so he still has a target. You know, he's also shrinking the graveyard a little bit. It's going to make it a little harder to delve later on, but I don't think that's the primary function of surgical extraction. It's a surgical extraction.
Yes.
It's precise. You're trying to take care of very specific threats.
Collective Brutality will be played here by Owen Turtentwald.
It's a Bedlam Reveler. I think he's just draining.
Yeah, I think you might be right. Yeah, because Owen doesn't want to take any cards out of Jody's hand, presumably, right? Because of the bridge?
Right.
So it looks like, yeah, just drain you, and now Owen's on a long road to potentially burning Jody out, I suppose.
You know, you're probably right. At this stage of the game, the fact that he's just using Collective Brutality to drain for 2, he didn't cast Goblin Lore. He could have cast Goblin Lore this turn. Chose instead Domi for 2. Maybe he doesn't have Ancient Grudge in his deck.
I'm not sure.
Now, this is coming to fruition what I talked about during sideboarding. Jody might actually just steal this game with Ensnaring Bridge. You know, if Owen doesn't have Ancient Grudge in his deck, it might just be enough.
For Jody now, he's drawn Faithless Looting. He's going to cast that. He'll discard a Bedlam Reveler and a Fatal Push, and now, of course, Faithless Looting is gone for good. Turtentwald will draw a card, pick them on the ley line. He'll pass the turn back. So right now, what I think Owen's attempting to do is just fill his hand up, so if he wants to cast Goblin Lore, it'll be when he has 8 cards in hand. As he draws another card, another mountain, and now we're going to see the Goblin Lore.
I've never seen this. This is awesome.
I'm going to talk about an ugly game of Modern. It is pretty ugly, but it's a different one, not one that we normally see. But I do think that burnout plan is actually kind of the goal here. Turtentwald's going to lose 3 cards. We're not going to make him get out the dice this time. Just going to pick 3 at random.
I don't think they have 13-sided dice. You know,
we'll work on those
or whatever. Next week in the weekly sale.
That's right. So Goblin Lore done resolving. 3 cards will be placed into the graveyard. Let's see what else Turtentwald's got here. Looks like another copy of Leyline of the Void is in hand. He'll play a Blood Crypt tap and just pass the turn back over to Jody Keith, who will draw a card. Picked up a copy of Lightning Bolt. Did Jody also has a copy of Thoughtseize in hand. Looks like Jody actually has a lot of copies of Lightning Bolt right now.
So Owen is also playing this weird sub-game with Jody right now, where if Jody just doesn't draw lands, his hand's going to start to get full of things like Bedlam Reveler, discard spells like Thoughtseize as opposed to Inquisition of Kozilek, and excess removal spells. And once that happens, if Owen's able to deploy enough threats, Jody might not have enough mana to empty his hand all at once.
2 copies of Flamewake Phoenix here from Turtentwald. Keith is going to Lightning Bolt 1. That'll be exiled, of course. Here comes the other one. So Jody's going to fall down to 11. The follow-up here is Surgical Extraction.
Oh, no. Okay, so I think Jody realized real quick. He's like, surgical target, Flamewake Phoenix, with the surgical still on the stack.
Bolt the other one?
Bolt the other one.
Okay.
So, even though it was like a slight misstep, he caught it in time.
So here's the question, then.
Yes.
He took 2 from a Flamewake Phoenix. He didn't need to take, it appears.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm calculating here is how can Owen actually win the game. Assuming Owen has Bolt in his deck still, Jody is at 11, which is 4 Bolt range.
Yes.
So, he was at 13, and now he's not anymore. Now, I don't know if 4 Bolts are going to come rolling off the top of the deck, and Jody doesn't really have a great way to gain any life.
Yeah, I don't know, dude. He already brought in 1 Collective Brutality, though, so he might still have 1 Collective Brutality. He also has Grim Lavamancers. I mean, Jody's deck is mostly removal spells, though, so Grim Lavamancer should not be too big of a threat.
Lingering Souls. He's not going to get to flash it back, but he will get to cast the front end and attack here for 2. He's got so many cards in his hand, and Ensnaring Bridge is just starting to not matter at this point.
Jody only needs 1 more land, and then he can actually just hard cast the Bedlam Reveler, though.
Turtentwald will draw. Picked up a copy of the old Flameblade Adept. See if he wants to deploy that this turn or not. Owen's been kind of cautious with his play. 2 mana here. Looks like he might go towards Goblin Lore again, and he will. So Turtentwald going to draw 4 cards, discard 3 of them at random. Feels like to me that he does not have Ancient Grudge in his deck after sideboard.
Yeah, I think he would have been much more aggressive with these Goblin Lores, like not holding them for long. he wants to find them, and it doesn't matter if it goes to your graveyard or stays in your hand.
Looks like a ley line or two and a Gurmag Angler placed into the graveyard. Looks like Turtentwald actually picked up another copy of Goblin Lore as well. That is a Flameblade Adept. This is another Flameblade Adept. Pass the turn back over to Jody Keith, who will draw. You mentioned an 8th land will allow him to cast a first Bedlam Reveler. You see Jody's hand here, lots of removal. Looks like he'll play a Dreadbore, take care of a Flameblade Adept. He's got a Lightning Bolt too.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Jody actually just fires off most of his hand here. The Thoughtseize, it could put him in triple bolt range. He's playing very cautiously.
Could have attacked that turn with the Lingering Souls. Looks like he's here to double block.
Yeah, maybe saving the Lightning Bolt for a future creature, but I like the pressure from the Lingering Souls tokens. You need to actually close this game. If you suspect your opponent doesn't have Ancient Grudge in their deck, you don't want to just let them draw all their bolts.
It's Street Wraith time, folks. Hard cast as Lightning Bolt's going to take care of that Flameblade Adept. Keith will draw a card now. Picked up a copy of Collective Brutality.
That's a good one.
He'll play that, discarding Thoughtseize. So Escalate here will allow him to duress away the Goblin Lore and drain Turtentwald for 2. And here comes Lingering Souls in for 2. Turtentwald will untap and draw. Of course, you won't be able to attack with the Street Wraith because of the Ensnaring Bridge, so all you can do is pass the turn back. Keith in here for 2 with the Lingering Souls. This deck does play oddly well with Ensnaring Bridge on the battlefield. Now there's a second one. Turtentwald will continue to play. Down to 6 goes Turtentwald.
I imagine Game 3 is going to look dramatically different than this game. Owen's going to have Ancient Grudge in his deck. He's going to be able to find it much more quickly than he, this game is just become one of desperation for Owen. His entire game plan at this point is just to find burn spells. Cycling Street Wraith is not how you want this matchup to go.
Turtentwald will draw, and he will concede the game as Jody Keith, off the back of Ensnaring Bridge and a few other tricks, able to get the job done. Leyline of the Void was problematic, but Lingering Souls token showed up, and we are all tied up here as we prepare for game number 3.
Both players leaning towards their sideboards right now.
Yeah, Owen's probably going to draw up some Ancient Grudges, get those in the deck. Not sure how Jody will change things up, but we'll find out as we get ready to watch that third game. Here we are getting ready for game number 3 of our first round of the day here from this Season 1 Invitational, the conclusion of Season 1 here of the 2018 SCG Tour. It's Owen Turtentwald on your left, Jody Keith on your right, Black Red Hollow and Mardu Pyromancer getting ready to rock and roll here. Now we saw a second game between Jody Keith and Turtentwald in which Keith was able to assemble 2 copies of Ensnaring Bridge. Turtentwald played the game as though he had Ancient Grudge in his deck and he just couldn't find one. I'm not convinced he had him in before, but Todd, he certainly got him in now.
Oh, yeah, I actually disagree. I think he played it like he didn't have Ancient Grudge in his sideboard, because if he had Ancient Grudge, he would have been much more aggressive with cards like Goblin Lore, digging for Ancient Grudge, which it doesn't matter if it goes to your hand or graveyard. And he was playing as such, he wanted to try to protect his burn spells via casting Goblin Lore with 7 and 8 cards in hand.
Okay.
So it was a really strange game from Owen's side. I think it was more of a desperation ploy, playing it the way he did. He just didn't do anything for multiple turns, tried to wait till he had 7 or 8 cards in hand before casting those random draw spells.
Sure. Well, I imagine things have changed a little bit here for both players. If Jody didn't have Wear Tear in his deck before, he certainly does now. I imagine that he did. He just doesn't have that many copies.
Sure.
But, Leyline did cause a little bit of trouble. Jody was able to get the job done, but you see the effect that Leyline does have against this deck, making Faithless Looting, Bedlam Reveler, Lingering Souls, and a whole bunch more worse.
Yeah,
like
I mean, there is a chance here that Jody is playing the mind game of siding Ensnaring Bridge back out of his deck just to blank the hollow ones. Like, obviously, once the game ended, Owen immediately reached for his sideboard, and that might actually just change how Jody wants to approach the matchup.
tell you that 2 Faithless Looting, Bedlam Reveler, Collective Brutality, Inquisition of Kozilek, it appeared. Actually, that's the Kolaghan's Command. I take that back, along with the Young Pyromancer. But only 1 land here for Jody. But when you've got 2 Faithless Lootings, I think you're okay keeping a 1 land.
I have never mulliganed 1 land Faithless Looting in my entire life, and I don't plan on starting anytime soon.
Keith, I think, agrees with you, as he'll lose his Young Pyromancer, and he's actually just drawn a land for the turn, so he's doing totally fine, is Jody Keith. I'm sure he'd love to find a Lingering Souls to discard here to one of those Faithless Lootings. And I imagine he'll start with a Faithless Looting this game, but maybe not, as he does contemplate things. He'll play the Mountain, and now here's a Faithless Looting. So give a little information away about what his draw step was, and now he'll draw 2 and discard 2.
I don't understand that. I was trying to justify a reason to play Mountain over Blackleaf Cliffs, and I couldn't think of one. I still can't think of one.
Well, the land he has in hand, it was a Bloodstained Mire, not a Blackleaf Cliffs.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sure.
Okay. Now it makes sense. I am blind. Maybe I should get some glasses. Just
Perhaps. We all get older.
Yeah. We all get older. Not many of us get wiser.
Jody going to lose a Mountain.
Keeps a 1-lander.
Discards 2 lands. All right. That's
nice.
That's one way to go about doing it. He can't complain if he gets mana screwed this game. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Street Wraith will be cycled here by Turtentwald. He'll play a Stomping Ground, tap past the turn bag. Not an explosive start here for Owen, as Jody's picked up a Marsh Flats for the turn.
Looks like his hand, a couple of copies of Bloodghast, Flamewake Phoenix, Hollow One, so he really needs one of these draw enablers to really explode.
Yeah, Inquiry, Goblin Lore. Heck, even a Faithless Looting wouldn't be so bad here for Turtentwald.
Oh, Faithless Looting would be great. 1 mana for Faithless Looting, 1 mana for Hollow One, and get back both Bloodghast and Flamewake Phoenix.
Keith will play a Marsh Flats here. He'll sacrifice that. Curious to see where he goes next. Might go towards that Collective Brutality that's in his hand.
It's going to be a big old whiff.
There is a basic Swamp.
If you're Jody from this side of things, I think casting the Collective Brutality, the only card you're going to hit in this spot is Ancient Grudge. So I would only do this if you also have Surgical Extraction to get rid of all of those, and you still have a Snaring Bridge in your deck.
Well, there you see the hand. You said it's a big old whiff, and it certainly is. 2 Bloodghast, Hollow One, Flamewake Phoenix, Mountain. Now, as you mentioned, would be a great time for Faithless Looting.
Yeah, Owen could brick off here, but he still gets to cast Flamewake Phoenix and start attacking. That's a pretty hefty amount of pressure over time, especially because it has haste and because it just keeps coming back even if Jody's able to kill it or double block it with Lingering Souls.
Well, here's Flamewake Phoenix in for 2. Keith's going to fall down to 17. No Faithless Looting yet here for Turtentwald as we head back over to Jody.
Also, importantly, no second black mana for actually just casting Bloodghast.
That's very true as well. Bloodstained Mire, the land there for Jody Keith. That's land number 3. You see the hand there, Kolaghan's Command, Bedlam Reveler, and a couple other options there for the player on your right. Yeah, we'll just pass back to Owen.
These sideboard games have actually looked a lot better for Jody's side of things. When Owen's deck becomes a little more interactive and anemic, Jody's able to capitalize on that. He likes to play these longer games, and when they're both hitting each other with disruption pieces, Jody's deck looks a little bit favored here after sideboard, even though not a lot of his removal spells do a whole lot.
Kolaghan's Command will take care of the Flamewake Phoenix and get back Young Pyromancer. Turtentwald, he'll search up a Blood Crypt with that Arid Mesa, and I believe this will allow him to actually finally cast one of these Bloodghasts. But not a great start, not an explosive start. Now, what's this? This looks like it might be, Leyline of the Void. Okay.
I think the damage has been done. Right now, Jody has at least 3 instant sorceries in the graveyard, maybe 4 if I'm not mistaken. I think just 3. So Bedlam Reveler still costing 5, but it doesn't cost 8.
Yeah, 5 a lot more manageable than the 8 mana it cost last game. Here's Hollow One. Turtentwald going to cycle that. And now he'll sack a fetch. Down to 9 goes Owen. He'll get a basic Swamp.
You know, Owen's dealt himself so much damage this game. I would not be surprised to see Jody just steal this one with a lightning bolt and making some tokens off of young Pyromancer.
Yeah, he might just go upstairs with these bolts now. Yeah, so Turtentwald's going to fall down to 6. Make a 1-1, will Keith. I think he might. Does he have bolts? It looks like he's got one more bolt.
Yeah, he's got Lingering Souls, bolts, and no removal spell for the Hollow One. He might have been able to close the game right now, but instead he's just going to play to win next turn.
Turtentwald here with a Goblin Lore. Now this might be able to turn some things around. We'll see. A card like Collective Brutality would be great for Owen right now.
Yeah, he really needs a way to clean up the battlefield, and I don't think he has it in his deck. It's a really bad spot for Owen. His deck was just too slow, too anemic this game.
Bloodghast will be placed into the graveyard. A couple of lands as well. Goblin Lore done resolving. And now it's time for a Faithless Looting, so he'll get to see a couple of cards now this turn.
Whenever you're having to cycle Hollow One on turn 5, it's
tough.
not really where you want to be.
It is tough. Turtentwald going to get back a couple copies of Flame Wake Phoenix. He'll come in here.
Yeah, this should be game over. He has the second Lightning Bolt in hand, does Jody Keith. He's just going to ship in with all of his creatures, and that's going to be enough to steal this game.
Keith will untap very, very quickly. He will draw this. Looks like another copy of Young Pyromancer. Here come all the Knuckleheads. There's your blocking Young Pyromancer. We'll see a Lightning Bolt, and that'll get the job done. Jody Keith's going to win this match over Owen Turtentwald 2-1. Mardu Pyromancer will take care of Black Red Hollow One, and for the leader of the Goon Squad, until we think of a better nickname, he's 6-3, can still make the top 8 here in Roanoke.